the studios of the MetroNews Radio Network in Morgantown, this is West Virginia's premier sports talk show.
From Weirton to Welch, Martinsburg to Matewan, and all points in between, this is the Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline.
Tonight's show is brought to you by Northside Automotive, Route 19 in Summersville. We'll beat the advertised price of any other dealer in the state, guaranteed. And now, sitting in for Tony Caridi, here's Brad Howe.
Hi, everyone. Good evening and welcome in Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline for this Thursday, December 3rd, 2015. Thanks for being with us. I'm joined in studio, as usual, by the coach, Greg Hunter. Coach, good evening.
Good evening.
Good to be back with you after a couple days away from the studio. Got a bunch on tap for you tonight. Here's what we have. We're going to do a lot of Mountaineer football talk. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, helps us preview the West Virginia-Kansas State game coming up on Saturday. And we'll talk to Shepherd quarterback Jeff Ziemba. Now, Greg, you and Tony last night, you had Monty Cater on,
Yep.
Rams head coach Monty Cater. We talked to him last week. You were previewing their game coming up versus Slippery Rock. You'll be able to see that game at the MetroNews channel on WVMetroNews.com coming up Saturday at noon. So we're looking forward to talking to Jeff Ziemba coming up a little later in the show. He was the Mountain East Conference Offensive Player of the Year. If you'd like to weigh in tonight, you can do so a couple different ways. Tweet me at BradHowe07, at Brad, HOWE07, or you can give us a call, 1-800-765-TALK, 1-800-765-8255. And, Greg, before we dive into Mountaineer football, the coaching carousel continuing to spin, and it is spinning quickly. So here's the latest. Maryland now has officially introduced its new coach, former Michigan defensive coordinator DJ Durkin. He was with Harbaugh, obviously at Michigan, but also at Stanford prior to that. He also spent some time at Florida with Urban Meyer. And here's my question there, Greg. He may be a very fine coach,
Yep.
right? May turn out to be a great fit and be excellent. I can't imagine that's what they had in mind when they opened their search. Remember, they were out in front of everybody, got rid of Etzel early.
Let's do this early so we can pick our candidate.
So we can get it out there,
Yep.
vet everybody. We've got this Under Armour money. We kept hearing that, right? Kevin Plank's willing to step up with Under Armour money. Kevin Anderson, the AD, even went as far as saying back at the time, if you'll remember, when they were parting with Etzel, part of the reason was to, quote, find an exciting, wide-open offense, which maybe they still get, right? But they just hired another defensive coordinator. So I think that to me is interesting, and it speaks to what happens in these searches, that sometimes it becomes difficult to get the top candidates you want, and you have to end up in these places. Now, again, Durkin may be very good, but certainly on day one, if you're a Maryland fan, I doubt you're jumping up and down right now. That's still going to be a wait and see, in my opinion, at Maryland.
Yeah, didn't you think you'd get a guy with head coaching experience, right?
I think that would be ideal, yeah, and probably a big name. Now, speaking of that, the Miami search, and I know you guys hit on this a little bit last night, so it appears that Mark Richt is going to be the new head coach at Miami, which I think is a great hire for them. Now, it remains to be seen if Richt can go to Miami and win, but I think if you're going to gamble, and so many of these coaching hires are, in fact, gambles, that's a heck of a gamble. You get an alum, a guy that knows that area, and certainly the biggest name on the free agent coaching market of the offseason, right?
Yep.
But here's what's interesting, and I am one, count me among the group that was lining up saying Miami wasn't as bad a job as some were making it out to be. One of the reports was they didn't have the money to step up and be big time. That appears to be inaccurate, because it sounds as if they're paying Mark Richt what he was making at Georgia, which is $4 million a year.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one.
SEC money.
If that becomes true, okay, they actually had some money. Yes, they have fan support issues, and yes, they have stadium issues. I get it. But all along, I was in the camp that kept screaming, they got guys, though, right? And these coaches, Greg, we've been around a lot of them. They always find ways to, at some point, get on fan support, get on facilities. Those two things are generally never enough at most places.
Sure.
That's always a complaint, right? But the one thing that it seems like all of these guys want easier access to is recruits and talent, right? Isn't that the number one thing? And boy, as we've said a million times, Miami has that in tons, right? Just walk out on your front porch and you got tons. But here's what I found interesting. I thought they had as good a candidate pool as anybody else that's been mentioned here in the offseason. When you talk about Rick, one, Dan Mullen, if he in fact interviewed, right?
Yep, Mississippi
The
State coach.
Butch Davis thing I just thought was weird. I can't imagine that was anything more than appeasing a couple of donors that may have wanted it.
Though,
but okay.
he's a link to their, their past greatness, right? So,
right. He's also a link to their probation, and
Sure.
he absolutely wrecked North Carolina. So to let him back in college football coaching is surprising. But okay, put that aside. And then, quite frankly, Greg Schiano, who personally I've been on trips when he has done some things from an organizational standpoint that I wasn't a fan of as a visiting member of the traveling party, but that's a story for another day. Guy did spend some time in the NFL, and the guy did have Rutgers in a place which they would certainly love to be back to right now, given their current state. Pretty good candidate pool for a job that many have said it's not a great job. That's a pretty good candidate pool. No? Agree or disagree?
Certainly. And probably the best candidate pool of any that we've heard of these openings so far, right? I mean, even Georgia and USC, which are probably better jobs in many ways, went to guys that were coordinators.
Yeah, the Kirby Smart thing at Georgia surprised me. I know he's an alum.
Yep.
I know he's the hottest defensive coordinator in the country, and I know he's been in close proximity to Saban. All those things. You're right. Many would consider Georgia a top 5 job, and they're getting a first-time head coach.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a gamble.
Same thing with USC, right?
And same thing with USC.
Top 10 job.
At least USC, the guy's been in place. You've at least seen how he operates. And I'm not just talking about on the sidelines. You've been able to watch him up close. You have some body of work there, right?
But I agree with you. In every program has issues. And I'm not saying that Miami's lack of fan support in their facilities are not issues that have to be overcome, because that is true.
Yes.
But again, you said it right. I mean, within 45 minutes, you can get every recruit you want, other than maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
You have to go out occasionally for, a couple of guys, but for the most part, you can throw a rock and hit everybody that you want to bring to your campus. And let's also face it, the ACC isn't the SEC West.
Yes.
You can go there with just a solid team and be really, really successful.
Agree.
And we win there at a very high level pretty quickly.
Agree.
So,
which is why you get a guy like Dan Mullen interviewing, because I mean, it's a matter of time before he goes clearly, and I don't blame him. What else can you do at Mississippi State?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you're either going to go down and get fired, or you got to leave. I mean, those are the only 2 options for you at Mississippi State, because your opportunities to be better than LSU and Alabama on a regular basis are obviously nil.
Okay, here's the other latest news. Bruce Feldman of Fox Sports, within the last couple of hours, is reporting that Rich Rodriguez is scheduled to interview for the vacant South Carolina job. Also not a surprise to at least the 2 of us. This is one we have talked about from the very beginning, that he would be a good candidate there. A couple interesting things jumped out at me. So here's basically what we have. Tell me if I miss anybody here, and I'm just talking FBS, or Power 5. USC, Virginia Tech, Miami, South Carolina, Maryland, Minnesota, Illinois, Syracuse, Iowa State, Virginia, and Missouri are what I have as the openings. I know I went through that list pretty fast. I think I've got them all there. It would appear that Missouri, South Carolina, and Virginia are the only 3 that are open. But that South Carolina position, in Bruce Feldman's report, he's saying a source close to South Carolina says they'd like to have somebody in place by Sunday. Okay, so that's moving along.
Yep.
Missouri has announced, or it's leaked, the Board of Curators are getting together tomorrow, reportedly to approve a new football coach.
Sonny Dykes, maybe. I mean, that's
potentially from Cal.
Yeah. So those would open up a couple more Power 5 jobs if they take head coaches from other Power 5 positions.
They would, yeah, and then that'd leave only Virginia from that list I just read. But here's what jumped at me. 2 things jumped at me. Number one, we're not done with the regular season yet.
No.
Right? The Big 12's playing 2 regular season games tomorrow. Is the championship game for a conference? That'd be a postseason, I guess.
I think it's considered regular season. But either way, bowl season doesn't start until after Saturday.
So people are talking about the unusual number of jobs that had come open. Right? We're not even done with the regular season, and we've had those open and fill all in that short amount of time. That is remarkable. So for what was supposed to be such a wild offseason, right? I quote offseason. This thing's pretty buttoned up and done for the most part.
Very close to it.
Pretty wild, right?
Unless the next round of musical chairs brings open a few more positions.
But it's only going to do a max of 3.
Yeah, probably.
Right? Missouri, South Carolina, and then Virginia.
Yeah, because then, a mid-major maybe leaves, but obviously you're not going to get a Power 5 coach heading down to take the job at, Toledo's already filled, but, what I'm saying. Bowling Green, they maybe have filled their job as well.
Yeah, but from a Power 5 perspective, that's a pretty clean and pretty fast-moving
And I think it's
search.
a little unusual. Even in years when they didn't have this number, it seems like the search is oftentimes dragged out further. And I think, in today's world of 24/7 recruiting, 12 months, 24/7 recruiting, you're always so worried about getting far behind the recruiting trail and trailing everybody. The kids that you have are left twirling in the winds that have already committed, and the kids that you want to get have no idea of what you're going to do. So, I think everybody wants to make those decisions quickly. But again, is it worth making those decisions quickly if you make them incorrectly? Now, again, who knows if any of these are incorrect? Obviously not all of them will succeed at a high level, but I think that's why everybody tries to push this to the nth degree and try to do it so quickly.
And it's also, I think, why a couple things jump at me. One, this shows what we talk about so often on this show and our Saturday show. These ADs have somebody in mind. They know where they want to go. This isn't let's fire a guy. Okay, now what do we do? Let's have a couple meetings and talk. They're carrying around the list. They know where to go, and it's pretty targeted. The second thing that jumped out at me, Syracuse is one that's open. That's one we got.
Dino Babers from Bowling Green apparently is going to take that job. That's what they are saying.
But that's not closed yet.
No.
And you would expect him to have gotten one of these. Here's something interesting, though. It always intrigues me, the leaks versus no leaks.
Mm-hmm.
So South Carolina, as an example, there's a ton of information floating about who is interviewing, including Bruce Feldman saying Rich Rodriguez is interviewing. But you've heard Lincoln Riley's name, Sean Elliott, the interim. You've heard Will Muschamp is on that radar. You've heard a bunch of names coming at least attached to the South Carolina search. Conversely, Missouri is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You say Sonny Dykes, and that's right. You've seen a little bit, but
very
that's not heavy reporting.
No.
And that's not even a front runner necessarily report that I hear Sonny Dykes is going to be named at Missouri. That's just kind of floating out there. It's really interesting, the dynamic of leak versus no leak, because one thing that is off the table here that normally happens when there's a lot of job openings, a lot of coaches get raises.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of coaches aren't going to get raises out of this because the things have closed so quickly.
Well, and let's be honest, Rich has done that at different
Seemingly
stops.
every year.
Yeah,
Every year.
Not just at Arizona. So, agents float those out there. Rich isn't the guy calling Bruce Feldman, probably, maybe.
Now that one might, but yes.
But the agents certainly do, and that's where those leaks typically come from. And you're right. Most of it's done with a purpose. These leaks just don't come by happenstance. Somebody is floating this out,
and it's generally
for
not
an idea.
And it's generally not the AD that's searching that wants it leaked, because
they want it quiet, right?
What you're always protecting is you want to be able to stand up at the press conference introducing your new coach and said, our search centered on Coach X.
Yeah.
We went after Coach X, and we got Coach X.
Yeah,
that's what you want to say.
That you were fifth down the list.
South Carolina can't say that now.
No
matter which one of those guys they go with, there's going to be skepticism that they went after their first guy.
And if it's not one of those guys completely, you think they whiffed on the whole batch.
Exactly. Interesting, and much more to get into, but I thought, Greg, quite frankly, being in the talk show business, I thought we'd have some more time to discuss coaching moves. And it looks like as West Virginia wraps up its final regular season game, everything's
done.
It's all done. We'll have to be talking about the Memphis opening or something. All right, time to get a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion on football, and we'll get to your phone calls at 1-800-765-8255. Stay with us. We're back after this.
West Virginia has balanced its budget on the back of the coal industry ever since we became a state 150 years ago. Historically, the coal industry and coal-fired electric utilities have accounted for over 60% of all business taxes, while high-energy wages contribute a disproportionate share of income taxes, and coal severance dollars sustain important programs in all counties. All told, the industry infuses over $26 billion to our state's economy. Coal alone has paid down nearly $1 billion of the state's workers' compensation debt. Consequently, all state businesses have experienced major reductions in workers' comp benefits. The coal industry has always supported our people and our economy, but it's under attack from the Obama administration and the EPA. It's fighting to survive. Coal taxes in West Virginia are higher than our surrounding states. We're losing coal markets to our neighbors. Let's get our mines and coal miners working again. Support a reduced tax rate for mining, paid for by West Virginia Coal Association.
As a cyclist, we make choices. We choose which motorcycle manufacturer to buy from. We choose what type of motorcycle we ride. We even choose where and when to ride. We also choose to ride straight, alcohol and drug-free. Alcohol is involved in 50% of motorcycle fatalities in West Virginia. That's 1 in 2 drivers who die each year. Don't become a statistic. Ride straight, alcohol and drug-free. Presented by the West Virginia Department of Transportation, Governor's Highway Safety and Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Program.
The Northside Automotive statewide sports line returns in 2 minutes, on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
When something is missing from the picture, it doesn't make sense. Without the right people, your work site is just a site. Your office is just a space. Let's Train West Virginia has grant funding for on-the-job training in today's in-demand careers. Workers learn while they earn, and companies can be reimbursed up to $10,000 per eligible new hire. So qualified employees and satisfied employers complete the picture. Learn more at letstrainwv.com.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event. It's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
Welcome back inside Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline. Brad Howe, Greg Hunter along with you. Let's go to the phones here real quick. Talk to Bill in Cheat Lake. Bill, thanks for calling. Go ahead. You're on the show.
Well, I had a question to ask. I was on the phone to a brother in Florida, and I didn't get to have the radio on. Is it true that Mac Brown is wanting to go back to coaching?
That is the report, Bill. That is what is out there.
Was it in Virginia?
Yeah, that's the one that's being floated out there. And he's expressed his interest directly on some other jobs, but yeah, that's the one you're seeing his name attached to so far at this point.
I think he'd probably be a good coach. He's old. I'm not really old. He can't come close to me, but so 82 isn't old for me, But.
Exactly right.
He tried to jump into a job last year. Where was he interested in?
Was it Houston?
It may have been.
I think it was Houston.
Yeah.
Could have been. So, Bill, you heard that correctly, at least from what we've heard and read.
Well, I just heard from a brother in Florida, we were talking, and so that's all I have, and I appreciate you taking my call.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Appreciate you listening and calling. So, yeah, that'd be an interesting one. That is the name you've seen attached to that, Mac Brown.
Yeah, and remember, I think he's a Tennessee native, but, of course, Mountaineer fans should remember, he coached at North Carolina. Didn't actually coach against West Virginia. He coached the game before the Mountaineers faced North Carolina in the Gator Bowl in, what was that, 96?
96, correct.
He's been in the ACC, so he knows a bit of that landscape. And if he still wants to coach, again, is it a great job? Probably not, but it's not an awful job. It's been a while since they've had success. Can you win at Virginia on a consistent basis? Probably in that league you can be okay.
Probably in that league. You've got those tough academic requirements you're trying to deal with, but it'd be the right guy. From a personality fit, just as you outside look in at what I know of that job and of that school and what I know of Mac Brown, I think that stuff makes some sense on its surface.
Sure.
I think the question is, from a Virginia standpoint, will that appease fans if you go in and get a guy that is clearly at the end of his career versus one that's an up-and-comer? So I think that's what you'd have to look at if you're Virginia. Coming up here after the next break, we'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, for a look inside of Kansas State. But, Greg, I saw an interesting article that came out within the last day or so, and it mentions the Liberty Bowl. This article came out yesterday, that the Liberty Bowl is extremely interested in Kansas State.
Mm-hmm.
They've never had Kansas State appear in that bowl game, so that's something they're extremely interested in. That was a report out. Our Alan Taylor had it earlier today that West Virginia is squarely on the radar of the Liberty Bowl. I think that makes a lot of sense that those would be the two teams the Liberty Bowl is looking at.
Yeah, I mean, sort of where the pecking order is. I mean, and Allen had a couple of things in there, but, even as of a couple of days ago, I thought Houston was an opportunity for West Virginia, in Orlando was becoming sort of a fading hope in terms of West Virginia's bowl site. Now as we get to it's looking more like it's either going to be Liberty or Cactus. And the way I understand the rule, and the Liberty Bowl people didn't even explain this, nor did the Kansas State people, but the way I understand the rule is the Big 12, in their pecking order, if Kansas State is 5-7, they still will be allowed to go to a bowl because of their APR, and they'll probably end up in a bowl. They've said their players are going to vote on it. But the Liberty Bowl can't they get a chance to pick whoever is available, but because they're not bowl eligible, they can't automatically pick them. Now, could there be an agreement within the Big 12 that says, you know what, West Virginia was just there, Mountaineers would probably rather go someplace else? That potentially could happen, but the way the rule is written, and Kevin Kinder even did a little research with Big 12 people on this, said the letter of the law is the Liberty Bowl cannot select a 5-7 Kansas State over West Virginia. But again, there could be agreements between all sides to overlook the way that rule is currently written.
Steve Earhart, the director of the Liberty Bowl, said this in this article, quote, "We don't hesitate to develop a creative matchup. It's not just about who ranks where and who beats who. We would take a look at the entirety of the situation. I hesitate to develop any cut-and-dry criteria. Sometimes a team that has got 10 wins can be less attractive than a team that hasn't done well. There's a lot to go in it." He continued and said, "Saturday's game will be big for selection purposes," meaning the game between West Virginia and Kansas State, "but it won't be the only factor." He said the Liberty Bowl will consider selecting K-State at 5-7 or 6-6. So something to keep an eye on there for West Virginia.
Well, look, Sunday late afternoon, I believe it is, bowl announcements will be made. So we're not that far off from finding out West Virginia's destination. Saturday may not have any factor in that in terms of the outcome of the West Virginia-Kansas State game. It may, and again, maybe from the Liberty Bowl people, if West Virginia wins handily and, Kansas State doesn't look very good, then all of a sudden do they change their, this little behind the curtain agreement that could potentially be out there? Maybe that changes their mind. They say, you know what, we don't care. We want the better team.
Yeah, and I do think another interesting factor, if you take that off the table and it is just a pick between the two, the fact that West Virginia was there, as we know through decades of dealing with this, most bowls don't want to take a team, regardless of who it is, in back-to-back years. Number two, that is interesting that Kansas State has never been there.
Yeah,
and you got a guy in Bill Snyder who you don't know how long he'll be coaching. So I could see where that would be an attractive opponent. Now, what I would find interesting is what would most Mountaineer fans want? You're going to watch the game on TV most likely anyway. Would you rather watch the Liberty, which is in the afternoon, or the Cactus Bowl in the evening?
Yeah.
Now, selfishly, I know what I would like.
And not only evening. I mean, it's a 10:15, I think, start Eastern time.
I think it's 10:30.
Okay. It's
Eastern start. The Cactus Bowl.
Yeah. Now it's a Saturday night. So it's most people won't have to get up the next morning, and Brad, you could get a little nap prior.
Well, my getting up isn't the problem; it's staying up is the
that's
issue.
What I'm saying.
Hunter.
You need a nap to be able to handle that entire day. So but you're right. I'm not sure which way Mountaineer fans would lean, but of course, fans don't, unless you're a ticket buying fan, don't seem to be part of the equation that bowls look into. I mean, admittedly, West Virginia didn't have great bowl sales to Liberty Bowl last year. I would doubt that they would be great this year, though you're going to take even less all the way to Arizona, more than likely. Though, again, West Virginia has gone there in large numbers for big bowl games to Phoenix in the past, but I would doubt that this one. The date actually works pretty good. January 2nd is Saturday, so for fans who don't mind and have the wherewithal to fly out there, you could do it over the course of the weekend and really only probably miss one work day.
As you remember, as we've seen, that can be a tough route to get from here to there. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll know here. We'll know coming up as you said, in the coming days. Time to get a break in, but real quick, I see we got a phone call here from Jim in Nitro. Let's go to Jim real quick before we head to our break. Jim, thanks for calling. Go ahead. You're on the air.
I went to the bowl game in Memphis, and if I had to choose between Memphis and probably an 80-degree Cactus Bowl, man, ship me to Arizona.
Would you go to Arizona? Would you go?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, the game's going to be indoors, so in Arizona. So it doesn't matter if it's 80 or 20.
Well, yeah, because walking into the game, and so you want nice weather, right, Jim? You want nice weather as you head into the building.
Oh, absolutely. And, last year I was one of the 4,000 down there, 5,000, whatever it was. And, I went in with a toboggan and a scarf. You kidding me? I'll be in Scottsdale playing golf.
All right, Jim, thanks.
And the players enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, no question.
Well,
I didn't even get into the team perspective. That's why I asked from a fan perspective. There's no question. Teams, thank you, Jim. We appreciate it.
Quietly off to the side, I think landslide doesn't even count what West Virginia players want to do. I mean, it may be 99-1. And I don't even – well, let's see. There is a kid from Tennessee on West Virginia, the backup offensive lineman who's from the Memphis area. Maybe he wouldn't mind going home. I think all other 120-plus on the roster, and I've talked to some, would want to go to
I can understand
Arizona.
that. I just don't. I don't like that kickoff time, Hunter.
No, I understand. And you know what? I'm not going to. I enjoyed the trip to Memphis. Actually, there were plenty of things to do. Weather wasn't great, but we're from Morgantown. It's like it's not like 80 out here right now. So I can survive whatever it throws at me.
All right, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll know Sunday. Before we head to our break, the West Virginia Symphony Orchestra will be continuing its holiday concert series this Friday at the Creative Arts Center in Morgantown. Now in its 76th season, the symphony will feature classical, pops, family, and chamber music, the Home for the Holidays concert. For more information on this and other holiday concerts, call 800-225-5982 or visit go2wv.com. Time to take a break. Tim Fitzgerald, gopowercat.com. When we return, stay with us.
All Medicare eligible individuals. It's time for open enrollment. Take advantage of the health plan's Medicare plans with benefits such as Silver Sneakers gym membership, an extensive list of doctors and hospitals. Contact us 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week at 1-877-847-7915 or visit healthplan.org/Medicare. This information is not a complete description of benefits. Contact the plan for more information. Limitations, copayments, and restrictions may apply. Benefits and/or copayments, coinsurance may change on January 1 of each year.
Hi, it's Tony Caridi. If you're in a business or organization that needs visual help, then let's get together and talk. For more than a decade now, those of us at Pikewood Creative have embraced the opportunity to help people just like you tell their story visually. Whether it's a video, commercial, animation, or motion graphics piece, we produce content that make others take notice. We help people increase their business and organizations better tell their story. If you need help, then contact us at pikewoodcreative.com.
The MetroNews channel at WVMetroNews.com brings you round 3 of the NCAA Division II playoffs. The Shepherd University Rams host Slippery Rock this Saturday at noon.
Let's go, boys! Let's go!
Mark Martin and Carl Lee will bring you the sights and sounds of championship football from Rams Stadium in Shepherdstown. Don't miss a minute of the action with the live video stream starting Saturday at noon, only on the MetroNews channel at WVMetroNews.com. The Northside Automotive statewide Sportsline returns in 2 minutes. On MetroNews. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
When something is missing from the picture, it doesn't make sense. Without the right people, your work site is just a site. Your office is just a space. Let's Train West Virginia has grant funding for on-the-job training in today's in-demand careers. Workers learn while they earn, and companies can be reimbursed up to $10,000 per eligible new hire. So qualified employees and satisfied employers complete the picture. Learn more at letstrainwv.com.
almost there. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event. It's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
We're back. Thursday edition, Northside Automotive, statewide. Sportsline, as we said earlier, and as you all well know by now, the regular season wraps up for West Virginia this weekend as the Mountaineers travel to Manhattan, Kansas to take on the Wildcats. For a preview of that game and a look at the Kansas State Wildcats, let's welcome in Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com. Tim, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's go big picture first. Set up this Kansas State team for our listeners. Where are you? Where do you think this team is? You've been battered by injuries, but you've rallied the troops here. They've got a couple straight wins under their belt. Where is this Kansas State team as West Virginia arrives in Manhattan?
Well, it's still a team kind of searching for its identity. They've just suffered such devastating injuries at key positions. They're essentially playing with a third-string quarterback, and they have all season. The first offensive play of the season, they lose their new starter, Jesse Ertz, to a pretty devastating knee injury that took him out, for all of the season and maybe in the spring football. And then the next week, on just a simple play where he's not even hit, the kid that was probably going to be their number 2 quarterback as the season progressed, Alex Dalton, a true freshman, injures his knee. So Joe Huebner came into the season tied for number 2 on the depth chart with a true freshman, and now has proceeded to be the starting quarterback for most of the year, and he's adequate. I mean, he is what he is. He's probably best suited to be a backup quarterback. So the offense has never really found itself all year long. And defensively, in the first half of that first ball game, you had your all Big 12 safety and Dante Barnett go down with a shoulder injury, and he's been lost for the year. It's ended up being a kind of severe bone break, and now he'll be back next season, going to take a medical hardship and return. So essentially your 2 leaders on either side of the ball are lost in the first half of the first game of the year, and they've had just a number of injuries in that secondary all year long. And in the Big 12, if you're playing with a bunch of freshmen and unproven sophomores, which K-State is, you're going to have issues, and K-State sure has had issues on defense. So it's a team that still is not sure what they are as we head into the last regular season game of the year, and they've done some things better than other things, and then they'll kind of flip that on its head the next week. It's just been a really strange season.
Tim, statistically, this Kansas State team hasn't run the ball as effectively as we've seen in West Virginia's time within this league. Is that because teams are just lining up and daring them to run since they know Huebner isn't as sophisticated as a passer as they've had in the past?
Yeah, there's some of that going on, and some of it has just been surrendering that run to formation. They just straight are letting other teams talk them into throwing the ball because they show them something on defense. They've gotten away from that a little bit more. They've kind of gone to more dummy audibles and things of that nature. I know in the second half of TCU, you could almost say that TCU was calling the offensive plays because they were forcing K-State to check into passing plays on a regular basis, and it became a little maddening because they were dropping out of their run defense before the snap of the ball. And guys, they really haven't stuck with the run like they need to. Even when teams are really bad against the run, like Tech and Kansas, they'll wander away from the running game at key times, and you're just kind of baffled at what they're attempting to do offensively, and they'll start to throw the ball deep and get into things that really haven't been consistent winners for them all year, and it's like they want to do something they're just not capable of doing, and they're determined to do it. It's been a very strange year offensively.
Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, is our guest, and we've spent a lot of time, Tim, over the last couple months talking about how difficult West Virginia's October was when it ran through the top 4 teams in the Big 12. Kansas State's schedule wasn't too far off. In consecutive weeks, the Wildcats faced Oklahoma State, TCU, and Oklahoma. Yet outside of that Oklahoma game, which was not close, Kansas State's been right in these games. Lost by 2 to Oklahoma State, lost by a touchdown to TCU, and then even as you look at that Baylor game, which I know was the first game with Stidham for Baylor, it was only a 7-point loss for Kansas State. So Kansas State has been around in these games, even with all of the problems and injuries you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, those first 2, the Oklahoma State and TCU games, they led at halftime. In fact, they led TCU by 17 at halftime and blew that lead. So it's been that kind of year where they felt like they're real close to something good happening, and the good never really happened until the end of that Iowa State game when they got just a blessing of a break from the Iowa State coaches. But they did run through that 6-game stretch where they lost 6 in a row. In fact, if they can win Saturday, they'll be the first team in Big 12 history to lose 6 in a row and still make it to bowl eligibility. So it's just been, anytime you're talking about a season where you win 3, lose 6, and then win 3, that's a weird season.
Yeah. We know that too. We're going. West Virginia's going through that with a win 3, lose 4, and is now won 4 in a row. So we're right with you. I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of like these teams mirror each other a little bit.
Yeah, and the conference can talk about how they didn't design the schedule this way all they want, but I'm calling what on that. I mean, that computer doesn't spit out one schedule. That computer spits out numerous schedules, and then the conference presents the schedule for voting. I think it's very clear that they saw something here in November that they really liked with the top teams playing a round robin. I think it's worked out maybe for the conference, but they flirted with disaster. But it was wholesale unfair to teams such as Kansas State and West Virginia, and to a lesser degree Iowa State and Kansas, that they had to line up and play all those teams all at once and just get the snot beaten out of them, because those are really good football teams. That's the irony is, West Virginia comes in and wins on Saturday. It's going to be an 8-win football team, and I think a pretty darn good football team too. It's just they had games earlier in the year when those teams were healthy against 4 really good football teams that I think are all playoff worthy at one point during the year. So it's just been a bizarre year. West Virginia's kind of had it settle in going the other way now with 3 in a row, 3 out of these last 4 at home, and the 1 road trip being Kansas. So they've kind of had the rear end of that's worked out a little bit better than what K-State has had, where they just keep getting sent out on the road every time you think they're going to turn a corner. Off they go. They go to play Texas right after they beat Oklahoma and have to do it in a pouring rainstorm and lose that game. They go to Lubbock and play, where I really think if that game had been in Manhattan, it would have been advantageous to Kansas State. So it's just been an odd year, mostly because of that schedule.
Tim, I would imagine the story, though, at least in Manhattan, doesn't center around this game, but the future with Bill Snyder. Is that all that anybody's talking about? And what do you think? Is he coaching his last game in Manhattan this coming weekend?
It depends on what day you ask me. Today I'll say yes. Yesterday I would have said no. Seriously. He is so, sometimes after games or on Tuesdays during his press conference, you'll think, yeah, he's done. He's just running the streak out here. And then other times he just seems like his old self, and he's going to be back and continue to do this. I'm not sure he knows. I think he might be the same way. Some days he's like, okay, this is enough of this. And other days it's like, let's keep rolling. It won't surprise me, guys, if he does retire. And I don't think he wants to do it with a bunch of hoopla. I think we all would like, in an ideal world, those of us around the program would like him to do it at the start of the year, take a goodbye tour, and have a successor named within the staff so recruiting doesn't really suffer. But I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's just going to try to step away quietly and pass it off to someone. and that time might be coming here pretty quickly. And it'll be a sad day for K-State fans because he has put them on the map.
Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com is our guest. That's what I was just about to ask you. And I know it's always dangerous when I ask you to speak for the masses, but the general deal would be people would be bummed out if Bill Snyder decides to hang it up.
Yeah, I think the masses, you get caught up in the vocal social media, Twitter people, but I think the masses generally feel when Coach wants to step aside, that's fine. A season that at one point dipped to 3-6 kind of starts swaying that the other way with, maybe it is time for him to retire. And I'm of the opinion that I just don't want him to stick around so long it kind of falls apart around him, like we've seen other well-seasoned coaches do, be it Joe Pa or Bobby Bowden, where it kind of falls apart around him. You just don't want to see that. You want to see him to go out, maybe not on top. It's always tempting once they have a good season to come back and do it again. But, certainly in good standing. And I think finishing with a bowl victory this year and, get to 7-6 would help, maybe cement that it was an okay season and a year where it's a transition year, a small senior class, a lot coming back next year. And he's always kind of wanted to pass it off in better standing than he did last time. And I think he might view this as a good year to pass it off if they finish, fairly strong right here.
All right, good stuff. We'll leave it there. Tim, thanks for joining us. We appreciate the time, and we'll certainly catch back up again down the road.
Okay, thank you, boys.
All right, thanks. There he is, Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com. Time to get our final break, and when we come back, Shepherd Rams quarterback Jeff Ziemba as the Northside Automotive statewide sports line rolls on.
Getting to the top is always a challenge. Yet what so many people have learned is that when you drive the award-winning Jeep Grand Cherokee or the versatile Jeep Cherokee, the top is just the beginning. Because Grand Cherokee is not only the most luxurious SUV in its class, it's also quite adept at going further, thanks to a 730-mile highway driving range. Not to be outdone, the award-winning Cherokee strikes an equally perfect balance between capability and comfort, with things like available premium leather seats and a choice of 3 available 4x4 systems. So when you're in a Grand Cherokee or Cherokee, think of a 10,000-foot peak as simply a vantage point to find your next 10,000-foot peak. One drive and you'll discover why Jeep brand continues to be the best-selling SUV brand. Award segmentation, Summit model based on total SUV sales over the past 12 months in the 2014 Awards Light Vehicle segment. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
When you drive impaired in West Virginia, you break the law and endanger the lives of others. Law enforcement across the state is committed to keeping impaired drivers off the road. If you drive impaired, be prepared to pay the price. There are consequences. It's simple, West Virginia. Drive sober or get pulled over.
The Northside Automotive statewide sports line returns in 2 minutes, on MetroNews. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
When something is missing from the picture, it doesn't make sense. Without the right people, your work site is just a site. Your office is just a space. Let's Train West Virginia has grant funding for on-the-job training in today's in-demand careers. Workers learn while they earn, and companies can be reimbursed up to $10,000 per eligible new hire. So qualified employees and satisfied employers complete the picture. Learn more at letstrainwv.com.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event. It's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
Final segment of the show. Welcome back in. Northside Automotive, statewide Sportsline. Brad Howe, Greg Hunter along with you. Quick reminder, the West Virginia Symphony Orchestra will be continuing its holiday concert series this Friday at the Creative Arts Center in Morgantown. Now in its 76th season, the symphony will feature classical, pops, family, and chamber music, the Home for the Holidays concert. For more information on this and other holiday concerts, call 1-800-225-5982 or visit go2wv.com. And the Division II football playoffs continue this weekend as Slippery Rock visits Shepherd. For a preview of that game, let's go to the phones. We're welcoming Jeff Ziemba, the quarterback of the Shepherd Rams. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Can you hear us? You still there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, got you now. We'll set up this game for us first. And you know, you guys have had a fantastic season. You in particular have had just a wonderful season. The Mountain East Conference Offensive Player of the Year. You're a finalist for the Harlan Hill Award, the Division II Player of the Year, and we just lost Jeff. So we'll have to try and get him back on the phone if we can. I was going through some of the stats. I was getting ready to go through some of the stats there. He's had an absolutely fantastic season, Greg, as what I just said. Offensive Player of the Year in the conference and a finalist for basically the Division II Heisman Trophy. So he's off to a fantastic start for Shepherd, who overall just obviously had a fantastic season.
Yeah, it is certainly very much so into the Elite Eight round, basically, of the Division II playoffs.
Let's try it again. Jeff, are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you good. What I was saying there, you have had a personally fantastic season, as the team has as well. Did you know coming into the season, I assume you felt like you had a shot to be a really good team again and contend for a league title. Did you know you'd put the kind of numbers up that you have, 27 touchdowns, only 3 picks?
I mean, I try not to look at the stats. It's a team game, and going out and, of course, accomplishing those goals and throwing that many touchdowns with little interceptions. I can't do it without my offensive line and my receivers, but try to stay away from looking at the stats.
Jeff, you guys are still somewhat a young football team. Did you think that this was going to be the year that you could make a deep playoff run?
I'd say yes. Last year we had a tough loss against Concord University in overtime, a blocked field goal, and definitely hurt our young players. But I'd have to say, yeah, we had a lot of people coming back, a lot of receivers, Billy Brown, Tony Squirewell, and then some of our offensive line. The defense is back, so yeah, we definitely thought we had a chance, and we're just trying to prove ourselves now.
Jeff Ziemba, Shepherd quarterback, is joining us. You mentioned some of your guys right there. Give us a quick look ahead as you look at this Slippery Rock team. What do you see coming up for the game on Saturday?
Team, very skilled on offense. Got a great defense. Our coaches offensive game plan.
Oh.
And we lost Jeff. Strike 2. We're going to try one more time. We have another minute or so left here. We'll try and get him back on the phone. Very humble. Greg, he's had a fantastic year.
Oh, yeah, certainly has.
Did you hear those stats? I said 27 touchdowns, 3 picks.
Yeah, and only had 2 in the regular season. Had a pick last week against IUP. So, but yeah, I mean, he's also very fortunate that at this level he's got a player like Billy Brown, 6'4", 230-pound wide receiver. You don't get those very often at any level, especially at the D2 level.
All right, one more time. Jeff, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I'm
that's
sorry.
fine. No problem. We'll get one more question, then we'll get you on our way. So you were starting to say, what do you see in this matchup between your Shepherd Rams and Slippery Rock coming up here on Saturday?
That's going to be a very close game. We're very evenly matched. They got a great defensive line, and it's going to be a challenge for us this Saturday. But we're going to come out and going to get the win.
Absolutely. One last question. We'll let you run. Did I read correctly? Did you attend the Manning Passing Academy this summer?
Yes, I did. I attended as a counselor. I was one of, I believe, 38 different quarterbacks down there in Louisiana.
So that had to be a fantastic experience, huh, meeting all those guys?
Yeah, it was a great time. Not too many people get to say they got to hang out with the Manning family and all the Division I quarterbacks and stuff, but it was a great learning experience for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're running up against a break here, and we'll let you run, but sometime I want to have you back because I want to hear more about how that Manning Academy was. But best of luck on Saturday. We appreciate you taking some time, and we'll catch up again down the road.
Sounds great. Thank you.
There he is, Jeff Ziemba, quarterback, Shepherd Rams. So how about that? That's pretty tall
Yeah.
cotton there. You're getting invited to the Manning Passing Academy.
Absolutely. I mean, that'd be great for no matter what level of football you're playing to get that kind of honor.
A reminder, you can catch that game coming up Saturday at noon. Shepherd takes on Slippery Rock. You can catch it at the Metro News channel at wvmetronews.com. So keep an eye on that. Shepherd looks to advance, Greg. If they win this game, they'll advance on to then basically the Final Four of the Division II playoffs.
Still be on campus sites at that point. I'm not sure how they choose. Obviously, the higher seed through the region, but will it still be higher seeds at that point? But after last year, Concord getting to the Final Four, now if they can send another team, boy, that just tells you the respect that the Mountain East is starting to earn.
Yeah, and we've said that. We've talked about that all year as we've gone through this partnership with the Mountain East on Thursday nights, that how much the depth has increased across that whole league. And I think you just said it with Concord advancing as far as they did last year, coming in as the preseason favorite. Then you have Shepherd going out undefeated to this point with a chance to get into the Final Four. And then you had Charleston make the playoffs as well. So certainly a banner year for the Mountain East Conference as they for the first time ever have two teams in the Division II playoffs. All right, that's going to do it for tonight. If you missed any part of the show, remember you can catch the podcast on iTunes, or you can visit our website, wvmetronews.com, and download tonight's show. Special thanks to Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com and Shepherd quarterback Jeff Ziemba for joining us tonight. Thanks to Matt Sunday on the video and Joe Nelson on the phones. We'll be back again with you tomorrow night, 6:06. For Greg, I'm Brad. Thanks for listening. We're out.
The Northside Automotive statewide Sportsline has been an exclusive presentation of the Metro News Radio Network. Copyright 2015. All rights reserved.